Hello, ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys. You are now entering Season 2 of the Swan Hockey Podcast. Swan Hockey is flying around the junior hockey world one episode at a time. You'll experience things dreams are made of, as well as things of terrible nightmares. Strap in, hold on, and enjoy the ride. And now, Swan Hockey.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Swan Hockey. We are in Season 2. I am Eric Swanek, and today we are joined by Ryan Swain from Swain's Hockey Skills and Development. Ryan, what's going on?
What's up, Swanee? Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, thanks for coming back on. Always a good time. And we got an interesting topic for everybody today. So what was it? About 2 weeks ago, we got into the U18 AAA versus Tier 3 debate, and it sparked some controversy. And I'm happy to have you on, Ryan, not only because you agree with me or agree a lot with me, but you have actually coached in both. You've coached both levels, and you've coached NHL players. You currently coach NHL players with skill development stuff during the summer. NHL players are coming to you. So you got a wide variety of knowledge, obviously, in terms of, coaching, development, and I think it's going to be great to dive deeper into this topic with you. So let's get into it. So the debate is tier 3 junior versus U18 AAA. And my feeling on this is that a lot of players and families, they really got to consider playing tier 3. It's, for so many people, U18 AAA is nothing more than something to say, hey, I don't play tier 3. When in reality, it's the same group of player. Everybody in tier 3, everybody in U18, it's the same group of player that, hey, they can't play tier 1 or tier 2 today, right? So now it's, okay, where do we go when we can't play tier 1 or tier 2? And I think there is a lot of upside in playing tier 3 over U18, especially for those second year U18 guys. And one of the biggest factors is the cost, right? Tier 3, we're talking $12,000 roughly. U18 AAA, I mean, some of these families are spending, $50,000 a year.
Yeah. I think it really depends on obviously who you are as a player and what clubs you're talking about. But generally speaking, I completely agree with you. I think if you remove the top 10, top 20 U18 teams, which, there's only so many spots. Obviously, there's only so many players. And I would even go a step further in saying, if you're a third or fourth liner on one of those top 10 or 20 teams, you're probably in the tier 3 category as well. You do see your top players on the better U18 teams move up to tier 2 or tier 1. That obviously happens. But as far as the masses, I completely agree with what you're saying. It takes a lot for somebody to go from U18 to tier 2 junior or tier 1 junior. And the other side of the coin for me is I have, I don't know if this will ever happen because I don't think people would want to do this, but I have a hard time believing an average tier 3 junior team would smoke an average U18 team or vice versa. I think it would be a competitive game just because, like you said, it's the same class of players. If anything, the junior guys might be a little bit better because they're older.
They're more developed. They're stronger. They're more mature.
Yeah, maybe better is not the right word, but to your point, more developed, older, stronger, whatever. It's an interesting thing, but if you're a family that is conscious about spending or can't spend an astronomical amount of money, I think it's not even a question. Like, I think it's a layup that tier 3 is the way to go. Just be honest with yourself, and there's plenty of good options out there too. Like, everyone talks bad about it until it's their last option, then most of them end up there anyway.
Yeah, and even to like what you're saying with the top players from U18 going to North American Hockey League or going to the USHL, like, I think those guys will go anyway. I don't think it's because they're playing U18, right? It's because they're dominating U18. And if they were dominating tier 3, I think they would get the same results. And like, let's compare the two, right? So cost perspective, tier 3 wins, it's not even close, in general, again, generally speaking, not even close, right? Cost perspective, tier 3 wins. Let's look at, in terms of like what you get, right? I mean, you could argue that you get more ice time in tier 3 because they might be practicing more. They're getting 20-minute games. I mean, you could argue that you're going to get more in tier 3. And one of the biggest things for me is the structure, right? Where the U18, a lot of the organizations are kind of beating to the beat of their own drum, where tier 3, you have a league saying, hey, this is what's going to happen. Here's how it's going to go. Where, U18, like, you'll see schedules constantly changing, stats not being recorded for every game. And for anybody out there that says, oh, stats don't matter, trust me, they absolutely matter. We're going to probably get into that in a future episode. But even from a scouting standpoint, I mean, I had a major junior scout not long ago call me asking if I could find out a schedule for a couple teams over the weekend because he couldn't get the schedules. Like, that's a problem.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, something that I think really matters is not like, the level or what league. It's kind of who you play for, meaning like the coach or the club or whatever. I think there's a lot to be said for that. But from a structure perspective, I completely agree with that. Like, I don't know how anyone can argue like the junior schedule, and maybe I'm biased now. I'm coaching that level. But the guys are with each other every single day. You practice almost every single day. You have workouts together. Guys are living in the same billets or the same house. You travel together. You're on a bus every weekend. You're not really relying on mom and dad for anything. You're kind of on your own. So I think from like a life experience side of things, there's definitely value there. Versus U18, like I'm not really sure, and I'm sure there are some U18 teams that operate that way. I just find that it's probably much harder, and it's way more expensive. It's way more expensive because, like you said, you're not traveling to your league game. You might be on a plane, 2 weekends out of the month. There's a lot of things that, I guess you do know going into it, meaning like they'll tell you have X amount of trips, you're going here, you're going there, and it's not like, it's obviously not built into your tuition. Like, you have to pay for that stuff. So with the junior, like, it's all regulated by the league. You're going, a lot of the leagues do a pretty good job with the travel now, to where you're only traveling,
regionally,
3-4 hours. Yeah, you're only traveling 3 or 4 hours to go play your road games, which, it's kind of a treat, because if you do end up moving up, like, it's not always like that. Most of the time you're on the bus for, 6 would be a light day, a light road trip, 6 hours.
Yeah.
Most of the tier 3 stuff, I think most of it is like the max is 6 hours.
Yeah, because they keep it to regional, where once you get out of regional, that's where the planes start coming in, and it just, the costs add up. And again, like tier 3 carries a stigma, like, there's no doubt about that. But that's the biggest negative. Is absolutely.
And unfortunately, the stigma is real, because it's what people in our space are driving, and U18, there's probably more money to be made, and that's completely fine. And there's really good U18, there's really bad U18. I think there's really good tier 3, and there's really bad tier 3. Like there's, you know what I mean? Like there's good and bad in all of it.
100%. And that's my point with the stigma. Like it's kind of weird how there's this stigma with tier 3, but in reality, it's pretty much all the same problems exist in U18. I mean, you have lopsided blowout games, right? Like that exists in both. People talk about that in tier 3, but that exists in both. You have that in U18 as well. I mean, you have good, to your point, good operators, bad operators in both, both avenues, tier 3 and U18. I mean, a lot of the problems that people say exist in tier 3, they also exist in U18. I mean, there's some really horrific U18 situations out there, right? But people only, for some reason, the stigma, people only want to apply it to tier 3 when, again, like it's kind of the same on both avenues.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to be honest, I think a lot of people want their kid to play U18 just so they could put it on Facebook. And they could say that, my son is going to this prestigious place and whatever because it looks cool on Instagram and,
Well, and I think it's a way,
a tough pill to swallow, but I think that that's completely real.
Yeah, I think it's a way for people to not say they play tier 3. Right there, everybody talks about, I'm playing U18, and then I'll probably go to the USHL the next year. I'll probably go to the NA next year. Right? It keeps that, probably I'm gonna do this, like without having like actually do it and face the music that, hey, you're not there today. Right? Like it
yeah.
Like I think that's a large part of it. And if you look at it even from a development standpoint, there's a couple things that I think really need to be taken into consideration. First off, and especially for the second year U18 guys, I mean, you're practically a grown adult playing youth hockey. I mean, you're the oldest you could possibly be. You're playing against younger guys. Junior teams at the high level, they want to know that you physically can handle junior hockey, that you're tough, that you can play against men. Right? You got to start playing against older, stronger guys. You can't sit there playing youth hockey. Like again, and people talk about like, how young the players are. They're really not young. Like there's 18-year-olds in the NHL. And now you're telling me that like an 18-year-old has to play youth hockey? Like from a development standpoint, I think that's a big part that a lot of people miss. And the other thing too, what's really interesting, if you look at what USA Hockey's doing, right? They're coming out with this NDL, which is supposed to be this grand development system, grand development league. Notice there's no U18. They focus on 17U, 15U. And I don't think people are realizing that yet.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how it's going to change. I mean, I feel like it goes like up and down over the course, like, every 3, 4, 5 years, there's a little bit of a shakeup with the hockey, the junior versus U18 or whatever. I just, it's not like derogatory either. Like people just need to realize that everyone's path is different. And, I had kids that came from U18 this year who are pretty good that played for my team and they didn't do anything. And they played a regular shift. They played probably, I would say 12 to 17 minutes of ice. A couple of them got some special teams and whatnot. But, if you're one of those guys and you play in the game and, you don't do anything and you're probably the first one to run your mouth about it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like if you're going to run your mouth, by all means, go have 3 points and then, tell me to fuck off. No problem. Like, I think that's amazing. That's like best case scenario, but obviously that's not what's happening regularly. Like we had a couple guys that did do that. And I think that's amazing. Like, I think that's awesome. You know what I mean? You answered the bell or however you want to put it. But again, we're talking about the masses, right? Like just generally speaking. So if you're one of the guys who doesn't want to explore a tier 3 option for the stigma I think you really have to like get a grip, and you really have to be able to take your development seriously. And that's knowing what you are and where you are, and knowing what a good option that's realistic for you is. Because even if you're a fringe, like I don't know what the NCDC is, like tier 2, tier 2.5, tier 3.5, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
You know, I coach in the NA3. It's definitely a level above the NA3, for the most part anyway, especially in the East. But if you're going to go to a team and ride the bench and play 2 minutes a night, like, you're doing yourself a disservice. Like, you might want that on your elite prospects, and that's amazing, but no one's looking for a guy who had 20 games played with 1 point all year.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother, like I said, that's a whole nother can of worms that we're probably going to do on a episode in the not so distant future. But yeah, like guys have to understand that it's like what they make of it.
For sure.
Sorry, what were you going to say?
I think that I think it just directly correlates. Like, even if you're going to play U18 again, just make sure you're the guy. Make sure you're getting the touches. Make sure you're on the ice. You know, whatever the case is.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, those things have to happen. You have to be. You have to be. At a minimum, getting a regular shift and having success wherever you are. And this is what the players make of it. And that's kind of my whole point. Like, there are and again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong. Like there's nothing wrong with, like, I'm not saying that there's anything bad with U18 or tier 3 or that, and not putting down any player. Like, there's nothing wrong with being in this player pool right now. I mean, in fact, most guys are, right? The point is, it's what you make of it. Tier 3, U18, it depends what you do when you're there, right? So that's my point is, I don't like to see all these families spending way more money than they have to, when really that's not the secret sauce, right? It matters what the player does when they're there. And, some people have argued with me saying that, hey, U18 might provide a little bit of a better opportunity than some tier 3. And, maybe not. But even if we say that it does, which I'm not convinced it does, but even if we say that it does, is that still worth paying $30,000, $40,000 more? My opinion is the answer is absolutely not. Like, it's what you make of it, right? To tell a family, hey, you got to pay $40,000 more for what some people say is a little bit of a better opportunity. No, like that's ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's all relative too. Like, if you're in that pool where, you can afford to do that, and the program has a track record of maybe pulling kids up to a higher level, whether it's within or whether they just promote their players on, I think that, should be taken into consideration. But again, there's options at both levels that do that.
Right. That's that's my point. Like, why throw away the money?
I agree. Yeah. Like, I agree. It's not the secret sauce is a good way to put it. Meaning, like, it's not the end all be all. Like, that shouldn't be the price tag doesn't dictate like the end result.
No, and the level doesn't dictate the end result. It depends what you do while you're at the level. And even for the people that want to, that say, hey, unless you could play in the USHL or the NA, go play U18, go play at a top U18 program. Well, then you got to compare that. Like, if you want to talk about the top, the top 5% of U18, well, then we got to talk about the top 5% of what's available outside the NA. And if we're talking about in the US, that would be the Atlantic division of the NCDC. Now we're back to the same conversation. Could I tell somebody, hey, go play for a top 5% U18 program over going to play in the Atlantic division of the NCDC for free? No, I can't tell somebody that.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, I
agree.
Yeah. I think it's just something that so many people need to start opening their eyes to, because they will save a lot of money. And I mean, even if you have the money, why throw it away? Like if you decided, hey, I want to drop, I want to drop an extra 30 grand on hockey, go buy all new equipment, go get NHL skills and development coaches all summer, go spend it on areas that are actually going to make you better at hockey.
Yeah, for sure.
So
for sure.
But yeah, I mean, that's my opinion on this whole thing. Anything else that you think on it from like a development standpoint, or anything that you're noticing, from somebody that works with NHL players, anything you're noticing from a development standpoint, or, from your time coaching U18 versus your time coaching Tier 3 now? Any differences or consistencies?
I think the biggest difference is there's way more camaraderie with the junior group than there is the U18 group. Because like we said earlier, everyone is with each other like way more frequently. You practice a little bit more. It really is the same player pool. And I think for some of the guys who are at the bottom of the lineup, who are just getting a taste of this level, I think they have grown like exponentially. And I say that because they are playing against older players, better players, stronger players, and I think they were a little bit like physically immature in August and September, and they might have been like, oh shit, like I really need to figure this out, or else like I'm never gonna play. And I think that it kind of pushed them, because like they may have been able to get away with it a little bit in U18. I think they would, the players I'm referring to would maybe not be in a different position in the lineup, but they might be playing more just because that's typically how it goes, I guess. Like, again, we're talking about the general player here, but I think that some of the kids see it, they're like, oh, these guys are pretty serious. Like the top guys, they're pretty serious. You know what I mean? Like they do the things the right way. They're at practice an hour early. They're at workout an hour early. We're at games 2.5 hours early. How do these guys prepare? Like I think they learn from the other guys in the room. And I think that has kind of pushed them, because there was players that we had at the beginning of the year that I like was genuinely scared to put them on the ice. Like I didn't think that they could handle it, to be honest with you. And like I've had conversations with some guys, and of course, like no one wants to hear that, but I actually mean it. Like I'm not saying that to give the kid an excuse on why he's not playing. Like I genuinely felt that some of the guys couldn't take a shift, couldn't take 5 minutes. And over the course of the season, like it's grown exponentially. They're way more confident. They're way more comfortable. They're still not, they're not the top players, and that's okay. But they know that they're getting better. The families know they're getting better, and most of them all want to come back. I think because they see like what it really is like, and they see how, like I said, that the serious guys, how they prepare. And I think at U18, it kind of could be tough when you're traveling all over the place. You're with your mom and your dad, you're getting there an hour before, you're not always with the team. Like, I think a lot of things like get lost just on how it's designed. Like, it's not anybody's fault.
Yeah, it's a different level.
You may not even be thinking about something like that. But when you have a setup where like it's the same schedule every single day. And then, if you have a weekday game, it's a little bit different, but for the most part, it's the same schedule. You're playing Friday, Saturday, where you're going from, the day you get there, the schedule really doesn't change. So I think some structure is also really good for players in your own life. Like for me, I think as a player, looking back at it, it was way easier to manage when you know what it is every single day.
Right. Yeah, and even with other, like I said, even like with the schedule staying the same, like everybody knows what the schedule is going to be in terms of scouts and stuff. And not for nothing, but you look at USA Hockey and the NTDP, right? Which we started talking about the NTDP last episode and some different different things there. But in terms of the concept, what does USA Hockey determine is the best thing for when they're trying to take their 17-year-olds and whatnot and develop them? What do? They put them in the USHL. They play them against older, stronger players. That's what USA Hockey has deemed is the best thing for the players that they're sitting there, super hands-on trying to develop, right? So why would it change? Now that's the top group of that age group, but now when you take the second group of that age group or the third group of that age group, why would the concept change? Right? So it would make sense. Okay, I'm not in that top group, but maybe I'm in group number 3. Okay, I'm going to go play in the third best league. Right? Like that's the concept that USA Hockey has deemed is the best. And now when USA Hockey comes out, came out with their NDL, it's 17U, 15U. They're not worried about the 18-year-olds. Right. So that's very interesting to note too, what USA Hockey is doing. And, but yeah, I mean, that's all I got. We're, call it here. Anything you want to end off on?
No, I mean, I think before you have an opinion of one thing or the other, I would just say, do your own research and, use the resources that are available now. They're out there more than ever. Talk to multiple different people and try to form your own opinion before you just listen to an Instagram ad or a podcast or whatever. Like, form your own opinion. Try to get educated about it because it'll definitely help.
Yes, and the biggest thing is to remember that every player's situation is different, right? There's no such thing as a blanket rule, right? This is just stuff that everybody needs to take into consideration, right? And then you may find that, hey, U18 is better for me and my family, or hey, Tier 3 is better for me and my family, but it's something that everybody needs to take into consideration. And I think that Tier 3 stigma, that needs to go. It'd be really nice if it goes. I think when people look at the two levels, they will see that they have so much in common at a very different price tag.
For sure.
So, all right. Well, Swainer, thanks again for coming on. That's going to be it for this episode. Remember, guys, the conversation always continues in the Discord. You can get there from the link in the description of this episode or from swanhockey.com. And until next time, I will see you guys soon.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Swan Hockey Podcast. We remind you that season pass points are available to listeners. For more information, please visit www.swanhockey.io. Until next time.